So as I said, we're going to discuss today managing student loan debt in uncertain times. Um, this is the agenda. We're going to, Yamini is going to do a few words on the United Way of Long Island. Then we're going to get into the strategies for tackling your student debt, the legal challenges, which I mentioned before, repayment options, because no discussion about student loans can be had without actually talking about repayment plans. Forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge options, which we know a lot of people are interested in. The IDR account adjustment, which is a one-time account revision that is going to allow a lot of people to accumulate qualifying payment credit towards forgiveness programs. How to get out of default, and just a couple of words on private loans. The vast majority of what we're going to be talking about today pertains to federal debt. So before we get into the crux of the presentation, I'm just going to ask Yamina to say a few words about United Way of Long Island. Take it away, Yamina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amina. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Nancy. So, United Way of Long Island is a nonprofit organization dedicated to financial stability, education, and health. We try to provide resources and support to address key community challenges, and we try our best to make sure that our resources are available to our immediate community. Nancy, you can go to the next slide. We have a plethora of programs that take place around the year, so please do go to our website and take a look. And if you would like to inquire by phone, we are more than available and here to help. We thank you for being here, and we look forward to you being educated about the student loan situation that is currently taking place.
And everybody that registered for this webinar is going to receive a copy of the deck, which is going to have the contact information. So one of the things that the EDCAP program does, in addition to these free webinars, we provide one-on-one counseling services. So we know, particularly with student loans, that it is very much can be sort of an individual thing. Not everybody, it's not a cookie cutter situation. Lots of people have different issues. And it may be to your benefit to actually schedule a one-on-one consultation with a counselor and go through to get the best advice and a plan that's tailored to you. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the strategies for tackling debt. When clients come to us, they usually come to us with a specific issue that they're trying to address, which is important. These are immediate issues like you may not be able to afford your repayment plan, or you're in default and need to get out of default, or you're about to go into default and you want to prevent that. So all of those things are very important and they have to be addressed. But one of the things that we also try to do with every client once we schedule a session is to leave you with a long-term strategy for eliminating your debt. Because at the end of the day, that's your goal, is to get rid of this debt as quickly as possible and with the least amount of money spent. So we have found over the years from speaking to our clients that there are basically three ways to tackle your student loan debt, and that our clients fall into one of these three buckets. So the first bucket is pay the debt in full as quickly as possible. So this is something that I think most people assume that this is what they're going to have to do when they take out debt. The understanding is, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to pay all this back with interest. And this definitely is a strategy for some people, but it's not a strategy for everybody within the student loan world, because there are alternatives, which I'll discuss in a minute. This strategy is going to be best suited for borrowers that have low balances compared to their income. So that's going to allow them to make lump sum payments or pay more than the required amount, and to pay the debt down as quickly as possible. So generally, we look at a quick repayment would be anything in sort of less than 10 years, because 10 years is the length of time of the standard repayment plan, and that's the length of time for one of the biggest forgiveness programs, being public service loan forgiveness. It's hard to get rid of the loans through forgiveness earlier than 10 years. There are a couple of small programs that will allow you to do that, but the vast majority of people would have to do it in 10 years or more. So if you're in that bucket where you can really afford to make these aggressive payments, the faster you pay the loan down, the more you're going to save overall over the life of the loan, because you're going to be saving on interest. Now, the second bucket, which is frankly where most of our clients lie, is the alternative. There's a very viable strategy within the federal student loan system that allows you to basically not pay your entire debt back. And this strategy is basically identifying a forgiveness program that you're eligible for and making the required payments and only the minimum required payment until such time as you receive forgiveness on your debt. So I know this is a hard strategy sometimes that people have a hard time wrapping their head about around this because the thought is, oh my gosh, I have to pay my debt back. Well, maybe not so much in the federal student loan world. And this is really going to be best suited for people who have large balances relative to their incomes. They maybe have a large balance, a low to moderate income, or you're pursuing one of the big forgiveness programs like public service loan forgiveness or IDR forgiveness, where you're really banking on being in these plans that are very affordable. And sometimes the payments in these plans don't even cover the interest on the loans, which means that you're really never going to be tackling the loan balance. So the idea is just make your minimum payments until such time as you receive that forgiveness. And then the final bucket, which sounds a little depressing, but we put it here for a reason, is to pay the minimum required until death do you part. Now, the reason that we put this in here is because unlike most types of forgiven consumer debt in the United States, federal student debt is dischargeable upon death. So in most other cases, if you have any other kind of consumer debt and the primary borrower dies before paying the debt back, that debt is basically passes down to the decedent's estate. That doesn't happen in federal student loans. And increasingly, we're seeing a lot of older borrowers that are taking out debt for their children, or maybe they did a late in life degree, and now they're stuck with this large amount of debt that maybe it's going to take them 20 or 30 years to pay off, but they're in their 50s or 60s or 70s, and that could mean that they're paying for the rest of their life. So the strategy here is just to find the cheapest possible repayment plan that you can find and make those payments until such time as you pass, with the understanding that this debt is not going to be passed down as a burden to your children or your beneficiaries. Okay, I want to talk a little bit, about the legal challenges. So as a lot of you probably have heard, the SAVE plan, which is the most recent repayment plan that was introduced by the Department of Education last year, and for most people is the cheapest option out there, is being challenged in the courts. So back in April, two lawsuits were filed by the state attorneys general of Kansas and Missouri, and I think there were a total of 17 or 18 states involved in these cases, challenging this court, the SAVE plan and related regulations. After a bunch of back and forth within the courts, what happened is in July of this year, in the middle of July, an appeals court basically blocked the Department of Education from enrolling any new borrowers in the SAVE plan or forgiving debt through this plan until the legal issues are resolved. The Department of Education asked the Supreme Court to intervene to get them to resolve the issue. The Supreme Court said, no, let it play its course in the lower courts. So that's where we are today, with the Department of Education not being able to enroll new borrowers in the SAVE plan. There's a whole host of other regulations that were to have been introduced in July that are on hold right now, waiting for the litigation to be resolved. If you were enrolled in the SAVE plan at the time of it's basically, it's called a preliminary injunction. At the time of the preliminary injunction was applied, you were placed in a non-interest bearing forbearance until the legal issues are resolved. Unfortunately, time spent in this forbearance is not going to qualify for forgiveness. And SAVE applications are not going to be processed until the legal issues are actually finalized. Um, At one point, the Department of Education actually disabled the online applications for income-driven repayment plans and consolidations. That was for over a month, and they were only collecting paper applications, which I can tell you is a royal headache. And not to mention, I can't imagine the idea of all this paperwork sitting on the desks of all the servicers just piling up there waiting to be processed. But they recently, like in the last week or so, reopened the online applications for consolidation and income-driven repayment plans. Borrowers can also submit paper applications, but if you can do it online, we strongly suggest that you do that. Just expect long delays. They are processing consolidations, I'm sure, with delays. As of right now, we're told that they're still not processing any of the income-driven repayment plans, but you can submit them. So it's going to take a long time to actually get into these things. Um, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the ruling affects some other features of the IDR system. So, for instance, treatment of retroactive credit towards forgiveness programs when you consolidate your loans, which IDR plans may become available. All of that is kind of tied up in these SAVE regulations and is a little bit up in the air at this juncture. Potential outcomes of these litigation of the litigation. Well, of course, the best case scenario is that those that are challenging the loss of the SAVE plan are going to lose, which means that all the features of SAVE and the related regulations are going to go forward. And that means that, the SAVE plan is going to offer reduced payments for borrowers with any undergraduate school loans over and above the already reduced payments that they offer. It would offer a shortened path to forgiveness for borrowers with lower original balances, offer more periods of forbearance and deferment that count towards IDR forgiveness. And then borrowers who consolidate their loans, direct loans or FFEL loans, are not going to lose retroactive credit upon consolidating if they're pursuing the income-driven repayment forgiveness program. So that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that everything gets shot down, the SAVE plan, all the related regulations, and then we revert to what we call the pre-SAVE rules, which again we'll take that as it comes. We'll have to see what's available at that point, but there should be some income-driven repayment plans that are available if that happens. It's just unfortunately some of the other regulations that would have been very beneficial will have been struck down. And then the middle ground, which in my opinion at this point would probably be a pretty good outcome, would be that the courts allow some features of SAVE to move forward, but they eliminate others. So some of the things that might be sort of a result of the middle ground outcome is that the SAVE plan remains as the cheapest option for most borrowers, but the reduced payments that I was talking about for people with any undergraduate school debt is not going to be available. They would probably get rid of the shortened path to forgiveness, the 10-year path to forgiveness, and borrowers would have to pay for 20 or 25 years if they're pursuing forgiveness through the SAVE plan. But if they left some of the other regulations that were supposed to go into effect intact, that would be really good for student loan borrowers and the system overall. So this whole court situation could take many months to resolve. And there's already a lot of uncertainty, and there will continue to be uncertainty throughout this time period. But we just have to kind of wait and see how it all shakes out. So how do you navigate the environment right now? It's tricky. I'm not going to lie. It's, as I said, the litigation has introduced a lot of uncertainty into the system, which is why it's good that you're now being introduced to a program like EDCAP, because we are experts in this field. We're about as expert as it gets. And even we are, still needing to continually update ourselves on the latest developments. But if you're looking to do anything a little bit complicated, like if you're thinking about consolidation, you want to get some expert advice before you embark on something like that. So reach out to United Way and Yamina for those one-on-one counseling sessions to help you through this very kind of difficult and dicey time. In terms of just staying informed, when you get this deck, there's going to be links to a few key websites that are providing updates on the SAVE plan court actions. and through the Department of Education. So you'll have the links here. You can also subscribe to the EDCAP newsletter on our EDCAP website. There's a link right here. We don't send stuff out very frequently, but we do send out, we do try to send out some key and important information to make sure. So all you have to do is click on this, put your email in, and you'll have subscribed to our newsletter. I think there was a question. Somebody had their hand up. If you want to go ahead and ask your question, I'll entertain it. Anybody have a question? Okay.
No questions in the chat, so not yet, as yet.
Okay. Okay, great. So I will then move on to repayment plans. So as I said, any discussion about student loans is going to have to entail a discussion or involve a discussion about repayment plans, because the repayment plan is the vehicle that's going to get you to achieve your goal of ultimately eliminating your debt. So within the federal student loan system, there are basically two different ways to make your payments. There are the traditional repayment plans where the payment is based on the size of the debt, the interest rate, and a predetermined payback period. So that's going to be like paying back any kind of regular consumer loan, like a mortgage or an auto loan. The fixed versions of these plans, you make one monthly payment over whatever the allotted time period is, after which you've paid off the entire balance, including all of the interest. The alternative to the traditional plan, if you can't afford that, is something called an income-driven repayment plan, or IDR plan. And when I say income-driven or IDR, that is an umbrella term for four different repayment plans, which I know is confusing to people. So if you hear me talking about SAVE or PAYE or income-based repayment, those are all income-driven repayment plans. So some of the pros and cons. Let's start with the traditional plans. The pros, the payments are predictable. So particularly in the fixed version of the plan, that's the payment throughout the life of the loan. So you always know every month that that's going to be your payment. That's what you have to make. It can provide a shorter repayment period, not in every case, but in some cases. It provides a shorter repayment period, and you could potentially pay your loans off faster. They're also a little bit easier to administer because there's no recertification or income verification requirement there, because the payment's not based on your income, it's based on the loan balance. And again, this kind of plan is going to be best suited for the people that I mentioned in my first strategy bucket. For people who are interested in just paying their loans off as quickly as possible, one of these traditional plans may be the best route. Now, the cons of a traditional plan is that you just may not be able to afford the payment in that plan. The default repayment plan, when you go into repayment on a loan for the first time, so when you come out of school or your grace period, is the standard 10-year fixed repayment plan. Now, that's all well and good if you have a relatively low loan balance. But if you've got a big loan balance, and maybe you don't have a job, or you don't have the job that you hope to have someday, there's a good chance that you're not going to be able to afford the payment. And that's when you would turn to the IDR plans. There's also limited flexibility in adjusting payments within the traditional plans. There are these things called the graduated versions of these plans, where the payments start out a little bit lower than they would in the fixed plan, but they go up every 2 years throughout the life of the loan, regardless of what's happening with your income. And about halfway through, you're paying more than you would under the fixed version of the same plan. And of course, these plans don't offer any forgiveness. For the standard 10-year fixed plan, you can earn credit for some forgiveness programs, but you can't get your loans forgiven in that plan if you remain in it throughout the life of the loan. The names of these plans, if you see these, standard, extended, graduated, or if on your servicer account you see something that says level plan, that's one of these traditional plans. So now we flip to the IDR plans. What are the pros of the IDR plans? Well, as I said earlier, they do offer an affordable, or in most cases, offer an affordable alternative to the standard plans if you can't afford those plans. The payments in the IDR plans in most of these plans are strictly based on your income, your family size, and your tax filing status. So the actual payment has nothing to do with the size of the loan or the interest rate. So you could have a $200,000 loan, but if you earn $15,000 a year, you will probably not have to pay anything on that loan for the time that you're making that kind of money or not making money. Some other benefits, if you remain in these plans throughout for a certain period of time, and that would be anywhere from 10 to 25 years. In most cases, it's 20 to 25 years. It's only the SAVE plan that offers this shorter path to forgiveness, which is being challenged right now. But for the other plans, if you remain in these plans for 20 to 25 years, any remaining balances would be forgiven. These plans are sometimes required for certain forgiveness programs. So if you're going to pursue IDR forgiveness or public service loan forgiveness, you need to be in an IDR plan. One of the really big benefits of the IDR plans is that you can adjust the payments whenever your income changes. So typically speaking, when you enroll in an IDR plan, they're good for a year. And then you would have to recertify your income and your family size after 1 year's time, and your payment may be adjusted. But in between recertification dates, if your income declines, you can actually have the plan recalculated and your payment would be adjusted accordingly. So you're never really in a position where you have to make a payment that's based on an income that you no longer have. And again, these plans are going to be best suited for the people with big loan balances, low to moderate incomes, or who are pursuing certain forgiveness programs. The downside to the, Yamina, did you have a question?
Yes, somebody put in the chat, does the SAFE plan include public service forgiveness?
So I'm going to talk about public service loan forgiveness is actually a completely different forgiveness program, which is not being challenged by the lawsuits. So I'm going to talk about that when we get to the forgiveness program portion of the presentation. So it's coming up in a few slides. But the downside of the cons to the IDR plans are that this issue of having to recertify your income annually is kind of a pain in the neck, and some people lose track of it, and it causes some issues. But so it is a little bit more difficult to administer. But if you keep up with the paperwork, then it works relatively smoothly. Potential interest accumulation over extended repayment periods. So in a lot of these plans, the payment that you're required to make doesn't even cover the interest on the loan, because remember, the payment's not based on the loan balance or the interest rate. So if you have a low income or a moderate income even, but you've got a high loan balance, your payment may not cover the interest, and that unpaid interest accumulates, and that's why your loan balance continues to grow. Which I think a lot of people are familiar with that phenomenon, and it's not very pleasant. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't get it all forgiven at the end, but it can be very unsettling to watch that happen. And then it could take you longer in an IDR plan to get rid of your debt entirely. And the names of the plans that we're going to be talking about that are available today to some degree are the SAVE plan, Pay as you earn, or payee. That plan right now is only eligible for borrowers who are currently enrolled. Borrowers who are not enrolled in that plan would not be able to enroll in that plan at this time. That could change. Income-based repayment, often confused with income-driven repayment, and income contingent repayment, or ICR. Again, that plan is only available for borrowers that don't, without Parent Plus loans, if you're already enrolled in the plan. For anybody that's got a Parent Plus loan that was consolidated, you would still be eligible for the ICR plan. It's a complicated subject. I'm not going to get into the weeds of that, but we can talk about that individually if that affects you. Yamina, was there another question?
You answered it.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the SAVE plan. Like, what's the big to do about the SAVE plan, and why are so many people excited about it? And then why were so many people ultimately upset about it? So it is for the vast majority of borrowers, not everybody, for the vast majority of borrowers, it's going to be the cheapest repayment option out there. The SAVE plan replaced something called revised pay as you earn, or repayee. So this happened last, I think around late summer, early fall. Everybody that was already enrolled in Repayee was automatically transitioned into the SAVE plan prior to payments resuming in October. One of the big beneficiaries of the SAVE plan is the interest subsidy. So what I was talking about a few minutes ago, where if your payment doesn't cover the interest in a lot of these IDR plans, that unpaid interest will accumulate and your balances grow. That doesn't happen in the SAVE plan. So if your payment does not cover the interest on the every month, instead of that portion that you didn't pay being added to your loan balance, it just gets wiped away. So basically, the government is subsidizing that. So what that means is that your loan balance may not go down, but it won't go up either. There is a shortened path to forgiveness in this plan. So for anybody that's pursuing income-driven repayment forgiveness, instead, if your loan balance was relatively low when you first went into repayment, you might be able to get rid of the debt in as little as 10 years. Most borrowers would still have to do 20 to 25 years, but right now that's suspended. Spousal income. Yes, Yamina.
Another question. Somebody asked which generates the least payment per month.
Well, I mean, that again depends on the individual situation, but that's what I meant by for the vast majority of borrowers, SAVE is the cheapest repayment plan. There are some exceptions to that. If you have a high income relative to your loan balance, the ICR plan actually tends to be the cheapest plan, but it may not be available to borrowers at this point, unless you're a Parent Plus borrower. So for everything else, it's for the most part going to be the SAVE plan. Spousal income. So in the SAVE plan, and this is just making this kind of consistent with the other IDR plans. If you're married and you file your taxes separately, the payment would be based on your income alone rather than the combined income. So that was a change from the revised pay-as-you-earn plan, which SAVE replaces, and it puts it in line with how all the other IDR plans operate. So when all the IDR plans now, if you're married, if you file your taxes separately, the payment's only going to be based on your income. If you file jointly, the payment would be based on the combined income of you and your spouse. In terms of who qualifies for SAVE, anybody with a direct loan qualifies for SAVE, except for those with direct Parent Plus loans. For those that have non-direct loans like FFELP loans, Perkins loans, HEAL loans, you can consolidate those loans and make them eligible for the SAVE plan. Parent Plus borrowers, unfortunately, you're in a slightly different situation. Direct Parent Plus borrowers can consolidate their loans, but then they only have access to the ICR plan. And if you're a Parent Plus borrower, you can reach out for one-on-one consultation with Yamina, or you can visit the EDCAP website. We have a whole section on how to manage Parent Plus loans. Yamina.
Somebody asked, what if you have mixed loans? So for example, I think what they mean is if you have direct loans along with Parent Plus loans, um, like I think that kind of situation.
So, well, I mean, it's hard to address. I want to just say it's hard to address every single scenario, but I will say that if you have Parent Plus loans, particularly if you have Parent Plus loans and loans for your own that you borrowed yourself for your own, for your own student loans, you want to be really, really careful about consolidating all those together. If a consolidation loan that contains any Parent Plus loans is only eligible for the standard plans and the ICR plan. So by doing that, you might basically lose access to cheaper repayment plans for your own student loans, things like the SAVE plan and the IBR plan. Now, the workaround to that is you don't have to consolidate everything together. You can consolidate your Parent Plus loans separately from these other loans. That's a situation where I strongly recommend that you reach out and ask for an individual consultation before moving forward. Okay. So in a nutshell, just to kind of summarize the repayment plan options right now, given the litigation, borrowers that are not currently enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan may submit, and I forgot to update this slide, they may submit an IDR application to their servicer. You can do that on paper, but you can now do that online as well, and we would recommend that you do it online if you can swing that. borrowers with loans for their own education have the option to choose between save or income-based repayment right now. Um, if you're not enrolled in payee, or if you don't have Parent Plus debt and you're not enrolled in ICR, you cannot enroll in those plans right now. But Parent Plus borrowers who consolidate can continue to enroll in the ICR plan. And that may all change. This could all change when the litigation is over, but this is the situation right now. So the ICR plan and the payee plan both became unavailable to borrowers who were not already enrolled starting on July 1st of this year. Um, is there any other questions about repayment plans, Yamina, before I talk a little bit about the on-ramp?
So there's one that says, how does the current litigation impact borrowers that are actually currently enrolled in Safe Plan?
Well, you're in a forbearance. You're in a non-interest bearing forbearance right now that does not earn credit towards forgiveness. So you're not required to make any payments, um, that's the plus side of that. You're not earning credit towards forgiveness, which is not as great. There are potentially some workarounds to earn PSLF credit down the road. I'm not going to go into them during this presentation. If you want to learn more about that, you can reach out for a one-on-one consultation. But right now, you're basically on hold. But at least you're on hold and not having to make a payment. My advice to people who can afford to do this, if you were previously making payments towards SAVE, like let's say you were working towards a forgiveness program like PSLF, and you were making your payments in SAVE, and now you're you're in this forbearance, you're not earning credit towards forgiveness. Number one, making a payment during the forbearance is not going to earn you credit towards forgiveness. So don't do that. What I would suggest you would do is maybe put the money that you would have put into your student loans aside in an interest-bearing account where you're going to actually earn interest, and accumulate funds for when you might ultimately need that, when the issues are resolved, and you may be able to apply that as a lump sum payment to your loans, or you may be able to apply that to buy back PSLF credit. There's a number of different things you might be able to apply that to. So that's my suggestion for people that might want to do that. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the on-ramp. So the on-ramp was introduced at the time that payments went back, that the payment pause ended. So back in October of last year, the administration knew that it wasn't necessarily going to be a smooth ride. So they said, okay, we're going to provide this. They're calling it the on-ramp. It's essentially a grace period. And what it did is for between October 1st of 2023 and September 30th of 2024, if you skipped a payment in a traditional plan and an IDR plan, there was going to be no serious financial repercussions from doing that. So no late fees were levied on the accounts. Missed payments were not reported to the credit agencies, and there was no risk of default. But this option ended on September 30th of this year. So going forward, if you start missing payments, all these things could potentially start to pile up and happen to you. Now, if you missed like 6 or 7 payments during the on-ramp, what happened during the on-ramp is every 3 months your account was made current. So basically, even if you missed 6 or 7 payments during the on-ramp, it doesn't mean that you're going into this post on-ramp period with 6 or 7 missed payments. You're not. You should be going in with a clean slate. So in other words, it would take 3 months from that. If you started missing payments in October, it would take 3 months before they would report you to the credit agencies, and it would take almost 9 months for you to actually default. So there's plenty of time to fix this if you haven't settled on a repayment plan yet. But just know that starting this month, these things will start to have repercussions. Okay. I want to go into the forgiveness options and discharge and cancellation options. There are a whole bunch of them available to federal student loan borrowers, but I'm really going to just focus on the biggest ones, the ones that most people are going to be either familiar with or going to be eligible for. So we're going to start with income-driven repayment forgiveness, and I kind of talked about this already in when I was talking about the repayment plans. If you're enrolled in one of those four IDR plans and you make your payments for in most cases 20 to 25 years, after that 20 or 25 years, the balances are generally forgiven, are eligible for forgiveness. Um, Now, the requirements of this program is that you just must be enrolled in an IDR plan, but there's no employment requirement. So you could be unemployed and eligible for a $0 repayment plan as long as you're filing the paperwork. So you're enrolling in the plan and recertifying the plan. All those 0 months that you are eligible for a $0 payment is going to count towards forgiveness. So this is the default repayment plan for people who have large loan balances, low to moderate incomes, but maybe don't have the kind of employment that would allow them to get other types of forgiveness, like public service loan forgiveness or teacher loan forgiveness. So that's IDR forgiveness or IDRF. And then the other very large program that most people know about is public service loan forgiveness. So PSLF forgives your remaining balances after making 10 years so 120 qualifying months of payments on your loans. Now, this plan has a number of requirements. It requires that you have direct loans. It requires, for the most part, that you be making your payments in an income-driven repayment plan. And there is an employment requirement attached to this forgiveness program. So to be eligible for PSLF, you have to be working at least 30 hours per week for one or more qualifying employers at the same time. And a qualifying employer is generally a nonprofit organization or a governmental organization. And with PSLF, it's not about the job that you have, it's all about your employer. So you don't have to be a nurse, you don't have to be a social worker, you don't have to be a teacher to qualify for PSLF. Your employer must qualify. You could be an administrator, you could be custodial staff. But if you have student loans and you're working an average of 30 hours a week, you're going to qualify for PSLF. Yamina, go ahead.
So there's a question about for income-driven repayment forgiveness. It says 10 to 25 years. What qualifies a person for 10 years of income-driven repayment forgiveness that's different from public service loan forgiveness?
So again, income-driven repayment forgiveness is a completely different program. So it only requires that you make your payments in these IDR plans. The only plan that offers a shorter period to forgiveness than 20 or 25 years is the SAVE plan. And that's only for borrowers whose original loan balances were $12,000 or less when they initially went into repayment. And then there's a schedule, if like for every additional $1,000 of originally dispersed balances, you add 1 year to that forgiveness schedule up to the 20 or 25-year maximum. So it's only in the SAVE plan that you could receive the 10-year forgiveness without having like a employment requirement attached to it. And that's being challenged. So right now, the government cannot offer that kind of forgiveness through the SAVE plan. Couple of other differences I want to point out between IDR forgiveness and public service loan forgiveness. Forgiven balances in PSLF are never taxable at the federal level. Some states will, a very handful of states will tax at the state level. New York does not. But it's never taxable at the federal level. IDR forgiveness, however, after 2025 may well be taxable at the federal level. So that means that whatever balance is forgiven would be reported as basically income. Now, there are ways of mitigating that tax burden if you're struggling, but that's, just want to make everybody aware that that is a potential situation with the IDR forgiveness. The third one down is something called Borrower Defense to Repayment, or BDR. That discharges debt if you feel that your school somehow defrauded you or was guilty of some kind of misconduct or misrepresentation that encouraged you to enroll in the school and in the different programs. So this is not for people who just didn't like their program or didn't like the teachers or, had the God forbid, were victims of an assault or harassment, that's not a BDR claim. You have to prove that your school intentionally defrauded, like they misrepresented the graduation rate, or they misrepresented the job placement rate, or they promised certain post-graduation services that they didn't provide. That potentially is a BDR claim. BDR, it's a bear of an application. It's about 25 to 30 pages long. And it can take a really long time to actually get a response. Like we're talking years potentially to get a response to a BDR claim. But if you feel that your school fits that description, it may well be worth filing the application. Somewhere down the road, you may get a favorable outcome. In the meantime, you can pursue other forgiveness options while you're waiting for the decision. And then total and permanent disability, or TPD, is kind of like what it sounds like. It forgives federal balances for people who have some kind of a mental or physical disability that prevents them from earning a livable wage. So that means that you don't have to be bedridden or in a wheelchair. It doesn't mean that you can't work at all. It just means that you can't work and earn sort of the basic amount of money that would allow you to provide like a minimal, um, you know, standard of living. Quick guidance for borrowers who are pursuing public service loan forgiveness. The legal challenges, and this maybe goes to the question that somebody asked a little bit earlier. The legal challenges against the SAVE plan are not actually targeting the public service loan forgiveness program. So you can still get your loans forgiven through PSLF even if you're enrolled or if you've been accumulating credit in the SAVE plan, that credit should still be applied to public service loan forgiveness. The question for a lot of people is, the issue is that the SAVE litigation does affect the IDR plans, which borrowers are required to pay in order to earn their credit towards PSLF. So for borrowers who are in the SAVE forbearance that may be looking to pursue PSLF, if you're close to 120 qualifying payments, you can potentially use something called the PSLF buyback, but you must have 120 months of qualifying employment to do that. And you would have to be able to buy back enough credit to get to 120 qualifying payments. If you're within 1 to 2 months of reaching your 120 qualifying payments, you might be able to file an application to switch your IDR plan, and then request a processing forbearance, because processing forbearances, in theory, are eligible for forgiveness for up to 2 months. So that might give you your extra 2 months. The other way to do it is if you can afford the standard 10-year fixed repayment plan, or if you're eligible for it, you can switch to a standard 10-year fixed repayment plan, because some payments in that plan do qualify for PSLF, and make those payments until you get your credit. But for borrowers with consolidated loans, this is for the most part not going to be an option, because most people with consolidated debt aren't eligible for a 10-year standard fixed repayment plan. You may be eligible for one with a more extended repayment term, like 12 years, 15 years, 20 years, up to 30 years, but those payments in those plans won't count towards PSLF. If you're not getting close to PSLF, just remain in the SAVE forbearance and just wait to see how the legal situation pans out. And with all of those other things, by the way, the PSLF buyback and the 1 to 2 month processing forbearances, those are strategies. We can't guarantee how well they're going to work. So you might also want to kind of stay put, and just see how this all shakes out. But if you're willing to give it a try, we can maybe help you with one of these other options. The most concrete one that would work if you're eligible for it and can afford it is switching to the standard 10-year fixed repayment plan. For borrowers that are in any other IDR plans, so if you were in the payee plan or IBR, just continue making your payments. You shouldn't be in a forbearance unless you ask for one. Just make your payments in those plans until you get your 120 qualifying payments towards PSLF. And borrowers can continue to file the PSLF certification forms. These are the forms that verify that you've met the employment requirements for the PSLF program. Just for everybody in general, but for particularly those who are in the SAVE forbearance, just assume that it's going to take you a little bit longer to get to achieve your PSLF credit. Yamina, go ahead.
So this is just backtracking to the TPD for a second. They're asking, does the SSI and SSD, which is Social Security Disability Check and Supplemental Security Income, count towards TPD, or you can apply for TPD if you are receiving either?
So you are there are three different ways to qualify for TPD. One is through the Veterans Administration. One is with a medical certification claiming that you have certain types of conditions. And the other way is to do it through Social Security. So if there's a number of ways to do it through Social Security now. So if you're on SSDI, and it depends on when your review period is, or on SSI, those may well qualify. Or even, and this is a relatively recent rule change, if you were on SSDI but aged out and are now on regular SSR, you might qualify as well. There's a number of different ways to qualify through Social Security. So if you're if you're on SSDI or SSI, you can reach out and we can maybe give you an idea of whether or not you meet those requirements. But if you do meet the requirements for TPD, frankly, it's a relatively easy application to file, and you get your discharges pretty quickly, but you do need to meet the requirements. Okay, I want to just try to finish up here in the next few minutes so that we stay on time. So some of you may have heard about another debt relief plan that was announced, I don't know, maybe a month ago. We're referring to it as the Student Debt Relief Plan B. If you go back to late 2022, you might remember that the Biden administration tried to introduce a broad-based forgiveness program that would have forgiven up to $20,000 worth of debt for most borrowers. And you had to meet certain income requirements, and maybe if you had a Pell Grant, you'd get a little bit more. That plan was ultimately challenged, brought to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court threw it out and rejected it. So they were never able to implement that plan. So they just announced a new version of that plan, which would offer more targeted relief, although, frankly, quite a few people, maybe up to 25 million people, would still benefit in some way from this plan, whose rules, by the way, are not finalized just yet. But it would forgive debt for borrowers who had been in repayment for a long period of time. It would offer full or partial relief to borrowers whose schools provided like low financial value, basically, bad actor programs that didn't result in any kind of good results. It would eliminate accrued interest up to $20,000 for some borrowers, all unpaid interest for some other borrowers. And borrowers had up until August 30th to opt out of this program, which most people did not opt out. But this plan already has gone through sort of a whiplash of lawsuits just in the last week. Basically, at this point, it is on hold as well. There's been a lawsuit filed once again by the state attorney general of the state of Missouri, and the state of Missouri has put a preliminary injunction on this plan until the case is heard pending appeal. And that could take a very long time. So you may have heard about it. Don't get too excited about it. There's nothing that can be done. There's nobody that qualifies for the plan right now because they're not able to implement any of it. Quick word about the IDR account adjustment. So the IDR account adjustment was a one-time account revision that allowed borrowers to earn retroactive credit for the IDR forgiveness program and the public service loan forgiveness program based on a set of relaxed rules. And this was really put in place to address the really, really poor performance and poor administration of both these programs up until this IDR account adjustment and the PSLF waiver were put in place. So just to give you an idea, the IDR forgiveness program has been in effect since 1994, PSLF since 2007. Up until this plan was put into place, maybe only 7,000 people got forgiveness for PSLF. maybe about 150 got IDR forgiveness, and there were 9 million people enrolled in IDR forgiveness, and an estimated 2 million people that are eligible for PSLF. So that's just how badly these plans were administered. So this one-time account revision went into effect. The deadline for making yourself eligible if you had non-direct loans was June 30th to consolidate those loans. Although some people with certain kinds of FFEL loans will still be eligible. But the bottom line is that the government is going through the accounts now, and sometime later this year, you're going to be notified. If you have direct loans, you don't have to do anything. If you have Department of Education held FELP loans, you don't have to do anything. You're just going to get a qualifying payment count towards IDR forgiveness later this year. Once you have that IDR forgiveness qualifying payment count, if you have direct loans, you should be able to turn those into PSLF credit if you have the employment requirements by filing that employment certification form. So that the program is over, but the results of it we're still waiting to see. And hopefully there's going to be a tracker on everybody's federal student aid account that tells you how many qualifying payments you have towards IDR forgiveness, which would be the first time ever that there's a tracker available out there, which would be wonderful to be able to see how close you are to earning IDR forgiveness. You can do that with PSLF because there is a tracker and there has been a tracker for a while, but never with IDR forgiveness before. Getting out of default. So some of you may have heard about the Fresh Start program. Fresh Start was a temporary program that allowed borrowers to get out of default and potentially clear up any credit damage, and there were some other benefits to do that. Unfortunately, that program ended on September 30th. That's no longer available, but if you are in default, there are still ways to get yourself out of default. So there's two basic ways to do it. There's rehabilitation, which means that you have to make you have to make 9 monthly payments on time and in full over a 10-month period, after which your loans will be brought out of default, or consolidation, which takes a couple of months to complete, and that can be done relatively easily online. It's probably in most cases a little cheaper than rehabilitation. There are pluses and minuses to both, but if you're in default, all I want to say is in most cases there's going to be still going to be a way for you to get out, but you need to reach out and get some counseling. And then finally, just a couple of words about private loans, because everything that we've said up till now just pertains to the federal student loan system. Private student loans are a different kettle of fish. They are not administered, and the Department of Education doesn't have the authority to dictate terms of private student loans. That's really done by the IRS and banking rules. But they are offered by private banks, credit unions, other types of institutions. Generally, they do not have the protections or the benefits that a federal loan will have. So they're not going to offer payments that are based on your income, and they generally don't offer forgiveness programs. Private student loans often, all the time, require a credit check. And most students who obtain a private student loan are going to have a cosigner because they generally just don't have the credit worthiness to get a loan on their own. And then cosigners, and this is really key for anybody that's thinking about doing this, that a cosigner is 100% liable for the loan if the primary borrower is unable to pay. And a lot of people don't realize this. Both the primary borrower or the cosigner may not understand this when they enter into these agreements. But then if the primary borrower cannot pay, whatever happens to the primary borrower is going to happen to the cosigner. So it affects your credit. They could be sued. They could have liens, placed against their property. So you want to be really, really careful. The interest rates on private loans are determined by the prevailing market rates of the day and by the credit worthiness of the borrower. The one, I guess, good thing about private student loans versus federal student loans is private student loans are subject to a statute of limitations, meaning there is a date after which the lender cannot take you to court to get money that you owe them. That is not the case for federal student loans. There is no statute of limitations for federal student loans. The government can pretty much come after you for the rest of your life. So just when thinking about how to fund higher education, private student loans should be avoided at all costs if possible, but should be your absolute last choice for funding because the options are nowhere near as bountiful in for private loans as they are for federal loans. The options are generally make your payments or you're ultimately going to default and potentially be subject to a lawsuit and a judgment. So best to avoid if at all possible. However, if you do have private loans and you're struggling, you want to reach out. If Yamina is unable to, she can always refer to one of our other network partners for help with what some of these cases are a little bit more complicated. So that's my presentation for tonight. You've got here the United Way helpline and email if you want to reach out for a one-on-one consultation. And as I said, everybody that registered for this is going to get the deck and the recording, right, Yamina?
Correct.
Okay. So you'll be able to review all this and reach out for those one-on-ones. So Yamina, any last questions that we need to address?
No questions, but I will like to say that all of the services that were mentioned in this wonderful presentation are available with us. So if you need to consolidate, if you need to apply for a new payment plan, if there's anything you that has to do with student loans and we can help with, we will do so in our power. If not, like Nancy said, we will defer you to another organization that will 100% assist you. So we look forward to seeing you actually, and I hope this presentation helped.
Thank you so much for Yamina for allowing me to do this. And I do want to mention also in terms of the EDCAP network, because I don't think I really touched on that at the beginning. The EDCAP network is a network of 11 organizations plus Community Service Society, which is where I come from, which originated the EdCap program. They're located throughout the state that provide these services to their respective communities. But we do have a number of legal services organizations within this group. So if your problem is really complicated, so if you have a private loan and you're getting a court summons or um, anything like really scary like that, even if United Way can't handle it, we may be able to find you a legal referral that can. Okay, great. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and just wish everybody a great evening, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you so much, Nancy. This was wonderful, and thank you everyone for attending.
Bye bye.